Hey guys, and welcome to another thrilling episode of the Squash You May Bell. Hope you are doing good. You already know what the pod is about, a safe space where we talk about real stories and real feelings. We share the ups, the downs, everything that makes us feel more human. One conversation at a time, we do that together. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, kindly do that. You can do that by my Instagram handle. Click the link in the bio. You can also listen on Spotify. Yes, Spotify, I am there. YouTube, I am there. Click the link. Tell a friend to listen to the Squash Mabel. Now, what do I have for you guys today? I have an interesting guest. When I say interesting, you guys know I haven't had a guest. He is the first guest I'm having on this phase of the pod. You know, the last well, I say the season 1 of the pod, we had a lot. But the relaunch of the Squash podcast, he is the first guest. So I am pretty excited. He has walked through the fire of heartbreak. He has gone through it. He has, you know, when you're making a sword, if you watch all those Game of Thrones, House of Dragons, you go through the fire. Yes, that is what I mean by he has gone through the fire of heartbreak. He has gone through the healing. I won't say too much. He will do the summary, the intro, everything by himself. Today I have with me Bryan Power. Thank you so very much for being my guest.
It's an honor to be here, Benita. Thank you. I'm excited to tell the story. This sounds pretty interesting. I'm excited.
Yeah, when I say it like that, it does, but it is. I mean, because when okay, your story said you and your wife, you went through hard time to the extent she filed a restraining order, and I'm like, that is the highest of it. And guys, you think you've heard it all, right? Like when you file the restraining order, that is it. But I kid you not, they are back together. Like, how?
You gave away the ending.
So could you tell us what happened? How did you guys get to the restraining order? And how's it now?
Yeah. No, it was a crazy journey in 2024. You know, my wife and I would go from what I thought was a pretty good relationship. You know, we had some minor issues, different parenting styles, stuff like that. Kids will always bring out the triggers in you. So, you know, definitely challenge you in so many ways, right? So our kids kind of challenged us, and that would definitely kind of, you know, put a strain on us at times. But it really kind of, you know, for the most part, we were in pretty good shape. No major issues as far as infidelity or financial issues or addiction, anything like that, where you're just like, okay, this is really horrible. But we had our differences. But early in February of 2024, we would have a fight about my son again, a little bit of parenting difference, and she would challenge me to see a therapist. And I was like, okay, well, you know what, fine, I'll go see a therapist, right? But I also challenged her to see a therapist because in my mind, she was the one with all the issues. But in her mind, of course, I was the one with all the issues. And so that's the first thing I learned is that, you know, we always think it's the other person that has the issues. In the reality, we probably both do. And that's just more realistic, you know, that we both have a relationship. Through that, because of the therapy we're going through, I think it added a little fuel to the fire, if you will. So our emotions were really heightened. We started having a lot of our childhood traumas were playing out, and we began to really kind of have this emotional clash for the next 4 months, which ultimately culminated in that restraining order, which ultimately kind of ended the relationship. I was kind of like, well, this is it. I mean, what do you go from there? You know, like it's over, you know? But as fate would have it, I was doing some work with the integrated attachment theory program, continued with some therapy. I have a faith in God as well. So the combination really just kind of put me on a path of healing and started getting a lot of awarenesses, and was able to kind of turn this thing around and started to see like where I was showing up wrong, also where she was showing up as well, but you know, mostly focused on myself and saying, okay, I can't control what she's doing. I just have to fix myself. And that's what I began to do. And that work would ultimately pay off, where we could come back around and had a second chance to kind of, you know, do the relationship over again. And now we're in a position where, yeah, things are great. So it's been an incredible turnaround for sure.
That sounds incredibly painful because I think couples, we don't mean to hurt our partner, but inevitably you become the bad guy. One way or the other, you become the bad guy. And we're so used to it's me against you versus us against the problem. Because in the heat of that, nobody's actually thinking about, I want to be right and you want to be right. So now, and you said therapy added fuel to the fire. So it's you're saying your side, but it's like this is just one side of the story. Why didn't you say this other part? So that's just I can't imagine how it must have been. So you said you added your faith in God, therapy, and integrated attachment. What is that for those of us that's hearing that for the first time? Would you tell?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate. About a month or so before the before our relationship ended, where the restraining order came about, I had come across a woman named Thais Gibson. It's Thais Gibson. She's out of Canada, and I saw a really great podcast. She was on the Mel Robbins podcast, and she was talking about attachment theory, and she did a phenomenal job explaining the different attachment styles. Attachment theory has been around since the 70s, and so that was an eye opener for me. I was like, wow, I could see my wife in there, I could see myself in there, kind of where we were, on the scale of the attachment styles. And then what I love about Thais Gibson, though, she just, not only took the attachment theory work, but she actually developed a program called integrated attachment theory, which actually begins to heal the wounded attachment styles and move us towards a secure attachment style where we know how to communicate better. We know how to handle ourselves in relationships better. And that was the work that I had come across that really began to, I was focused on. I got really interested in and fascinated by the work and saw a lot of answers there and just continued to delve into that. Even though the relationship with my wife was over, in my mind, I still wanted to heal. I still wanted to get better in relationship skills and, learn how to have a healthy, good relationship. And that's what my wife and I lacked. We just lacked the tools. It wasn't that we didn't love each other, right? It's just that we didn't understand each other certain ways, and we lacked the tools necessary to actually move the needle in a positive direction. And so, through the time away, through the healing that we went through, and through the integrated attachment theory program, I began to get tools that ultimately allowed us to come back together. And that's, kind of what we do today is we apply a lot of these tools that we've learned so we can have a healthier relationship. And it's been phenomenal. It's just been an incredible experience.
Perfect. So if I understood what you said applying what you learned. You said Taz Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
So applying what you learned from her, the integrated attachment theory, you got the tools that saved your relationship that was already gone. If you don't mind, I mean, this is like this is a free trial, basically. Could you give us a sneak peek of what the attachment theory is? Because I know there are people listening now, which, as you said, it's not like you don't love each other, but just finding the right tools, like how to communicate and all that. So could you give us some things that you learned?
Yeah, so I'll give you a quick synopsis of the attachment theory program, and then I'll talk a little bit about the integrated attachment theory program. Okay, so just so people know, if you're not familiar with the attachment theory, it's been around really since like the 70s. I mean, it's how we attach in relationships, and that can be with our spouse. It also can go into our families, our friends, our coworkers, stuff like that. But ultimately, there's 4 different attachment styles. You have number 1, a secure attachment style. These people are emotionally healthy. They're really balanced. They know how to communicate well. They really know how to handle, set boundaries well. Really just have it together when it comes to relationships, right? And that's the one that we all kind of want to, aspire to. But unfortunately, for most of us, we're going to fall in the other 3 categories, and those are the unhealthy ones. And first of all, you have what's called an anxious preoccupied. Anxious preoccupied typically have a lot of wounding around abandonment issues, maybe fear of being alone, not good enough. These are some core wounds, if you will, and they really value relationships at a high level. So they'll put the relationship first, pretty much above anything else, to a point where it becomes unhealthy, and actually a lot of codependency can happen there. So they're very good. They want communication constantly, right? They always want that connection. They're right next to you at all times. They just, maybe within 2 weeks after meeting you, they're in love already, and they already see everything is great, right? So that's kind of.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, so that's your anxious preoccupied. On the flip side of that, you have what's called the dismissive avoidant. Dismissive avoidance really, they really have a hard time connecting to their emotions at all. If they do connect at all, they really isolate. They really kind of handle them on their own. They really don't know how to communicate that well or connect with that experience. When they are feeling emotional, they're going to withdraw a little bit. They're going to want that isolation, and they're very hyper independent. very big fear around losing their autonomy and their independence and stuff. So a lot of times they'll push you away and just, they'll come close for a little bit, but then they want a lot of space. They need a lot of time to process. If there are emotional stuff going on, they just need to be alone with that. And that can be really hard. Imagine if you're an anxious preoccupied who loves that connection, and then you're dating a person who's more dismissive avoidant because of their own wounds and the way they handle it. Now you're looking for connection, and they're looking to, take a little space. Now all of a sudden we have something that's combative, if you will. And that's where my wife and I were. She was leaning dismissive, I was leaning a little anxious, and that's really ultimately where a lot of our wounds were playing out and causing us to have that emotional clash. In between those two different attachment styles is what's called a fearful avoidant. Fearful avoidance will kind of swing between both of those attachment styles. They kind of, sometimes they're very close and connected and feeling really good in the relationship, but then, maybe next week out of the blue for no reason, they're just causing drama, and there's issues, and there's the fear of, lack of trust is a big issue for them. And so all of a sudden that, they may be breaking up with you for no reason, or even just, questioning things in a way that's kind of out of the blue. And it seems very strange, but again, a lot of these behaviors are just because of our core wounds. We've kind of developed these things through our childhood, mostly through childhood. We can develop them later in life, but a lot of these wounds come through our childhood, and now they're playing out in our relationships as adults, but they become very unhealthy. And until we figure those things out and learn about ourselves and then understand our partner as well, the more we do learn about ourselves and our partners, then we can really begin to understand what's going on here and the dynamics of that, and then begin to fix it and move the needle in a better way. So the great thing about these attachment styles is they can be fixed. We can move from the unhealthy attachment styles to the secure attachment style, and that's what I love about Thais Gibson's work. She created that integrated attachment theory program to help move the needle from the ones that are broken and hurting to the secure, and that's what I love about her work.
That's perfect. I think the last statements, because when you were saying things, to be honest, I felt triggered. I'm like, oh, that explains why I do this. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Oh, shit. He's talking about me.
Yeah.
Like, the alarms were going on.
Yeah.
But the fact that there is a way, there's hope, in as much as these are core wounds, but there is hope, because not everybody is willing to go through therapy. So how did she help you? What was was it practical or theory? What was the good attachment styles?
Yeah, so I just delved into the work. She has a personal development school that she has that I challenge everybody to join. You can join that through my website. We'll talk about that. But I joined her school, and I began to I got so into it. I decided to join her coaching program as well. So I wanted to be a coach and see if I can help other people with this. And ultimately, it comes down to 6 core elements of the program. And it's these 6. Number 1, you have your core wounds. Okay, we have to work on those subconscious thoughts and behaviors that, the thoughts that are really driving our emotions and behaviors. Okay, so, but a lot of them are unhealthy, and they're just patterns that we've learned through our childhood, through different trauma experiences and stuff, that we now kind of have these negative thoughts running through the subconscious and driving the train, if you will. And it becomes a train wreck, because if we're not in control of that and figure that out, it really becomes a disaster. And that's really one thing I learned, is how much the subconscious is really driving the train here. In fact, she says that 95 to 97% of our decisions are made by the subconscious. And this is really what really hit me, was that the conscious cannot outwill or overcome the subconscious. So even though consciously we think one thing, the subconscious will always try to get its needs met, even though it's unhealthy. Even if it's in an unhealthy manner, the subconscious is going to drive the train to get the needs met. Even though consciously we think one thing, the subconscious is going to cause us to do other things. And I experienced that through, again, with what my wife and I went through. I knew consciously certain things, but my subconscious emotions were driving that train as the fear came up and a lot of the wounds began to, get touched and play out. That really kind of made a lot of sense to me. That's the first one. Number 2, you're going to learn about your needs. You got to really discover, what am I truly need in my life? What is really important to me? How do I get my needs met on a daily basis so I really kind of feel more fulfilled? And then how do I do that mostly on my own? So I'm not outsourcing my needs. I want to do that. 99% of that is going to be on me, so that I'm feeling pretty fulfilled on my own. I don't have to rely on others to fulfill my needs so much. And that really takes a lot of pressure off of them, right? Now we're able to show up 100% on our own, feeling pretty good. We're not outsourcing those needs. Very important. Number 3 is those emotions. We have to learn about our emotions. What is causing me to feel this way? And that's what we do. We kind of think back. Okay, if I'm angry, we have to ask ourselves, why am I angry? What's causing the anger? You know, what is really the thoughts that are driving my anger right now, or my fear, or my frustration, or even my happiness, right? Why am I so happy right now? What is causing that to make me feel so happy? So we begin to tap into that and begin to understand why, what are the thoughts that are driving the emotions, so we can now fix those a little bit again if they are unhealthy. And there's nothing wrong with fear or anger per se, but we have to ask ourselves, is this a healthy anger? Is this something I should be angry about? Or is this just something that's kind of nonsense, right? Something like as simple as maybe, somebody not picking up the dishes after dinner, right? If that causes me to fly off the handle, well, that might be a problem, compared to something like, okay, yeah, if somebody really, let's say destroyed my car for no reason. Well, I would be angry, that would be something to be, okay, yes, I'm obviously angry at that. That would make more sense. But see what I'm saying? So there has to be a little difference in there, and understanding that a little bit differently is important. Number 4, you have your boundaries. How do I set boundaries that are reasonable, healthy, good boundaries? That kind of really sets the tone as to how this is going to work, how the relationship is going to work, how we kind of, interact with each other. I have to have boundaries. A lot of times anxious preoccupieds have no boundaries. Sometimes the dismissive avoidance have very extreme boundaries to where it's just not even feasible. And a lot of times the fearful avoidance will kind of have no boundaries, but then they'll put some hard boundaries in there. If you're fighting and some things come up, they'll put a really hard boundary, but then they kind of back off on that, and in the next couple of weeks they lose that boundary. So it becomes a real problem with the boundaries. So we have to figure that out a little bit. Number 5 is our communication. This is a big one, right? How do we actually communicate with each other? Because I always say, if I'm talking, English and you're talking Chinese, we may be trying to say the same thing, but we're never going to really connect. We're just never going to be able to figure that out, because we're just talking 2 different languages. We have to find a way to communicate in a way that actually, begins to set in our brains, begin to hear each other, begin to understand each other. And now we can really get in a much better way. We can, both feel heard. We both feel more understood. And we know that we're moving the needle in the right direction because we're on the same team. And last but not least is our behaviors. Okay. How do we change our behaviors to make sure that we're acting in a manner that is healthy, good, upright, and not, chaotic and off handle, and again, behaving in ways that are just unbecoming and naturally going to destroy any relationship. So those are the 6 core elements. And I love that because it really gave me 6 things I can focus on and begin to try to work on and move the needle a little bit. And sometimes it's like, okay, you take a step and, all of a sudden you learn how to communicate a little bit better. That feels really good. Then I set a boundary maybe, and it's like, oh, okay, wow, I learned how to set that boundary. Okay, that's good, right? So I start to almost keep score a little bit and start to feel like, okay, I'm moving the needle a little bit towards that secure state. And now I have tools that I can use in my relationship that actually begins to, actually work. And it's pretty impressive when you start to see these things actually work. And it can be not just with your spouse, but also with your family, your friends, your coworkers, anybody that really comes into your life, how to, kind of apply these things. So pretty intense, pretty fun work, and really stuff that I think moves the needle pretty well.
That's awesome. So I was taking notes while you were talking, especially this last part. So you said, or my question is, it's better, it helps if you're both invested or you're both working towards the same goal. So what happens when one person, because I think if you were focused on building your marriage and your wife was, it's a done deal, that's it, I'm not interested. Do you think this attachment theories would have made any difference if one person was the one doing like 90% of the work?
Yeah, so I mean, while you're in the relationship is the best time to kind of do this work. And I've heard it said before, and I love this, the way it was put, that 2 is better than 1, but 1 is better than none. So one person doing the work can actually move the needle in a relationship tremendously. And you'd be surprised sometimes how one person making these changes, these awarenesses, and then changing their behaviors and the way they're doing things, the other person, a lot of times will come along with that. And sometimes even want to get more involved. They're either going to come along subconsciously because you're kind of doing certain things a certain way, right? And they're just going to follow along, not even knowing what's really going on. Or they're going to finally wake up and go, wait a second, you're doing things differently. You're changing. I really want to, it's working, and I want to learn more about this. They may actually jump on and want to get more involved. But again, one person doing the work is better than none. 2 obviously is the best case scenario where they're both kind of like, yeah, let's work at this. Let's figure this out. Let's work together on that. Absolutely. But if nobody's doing the work, you're really in trouble, right? So if both parties decide, hey, I'm not going to do anything about this, I don't really care, then that's when I feel like there's no hope, right? Because if you're already, that messed up and your relationship is so dysfunctional, if nobody's going to do the work and take some ownership here, then chances are that relationship is really going to go nowhere. Now, for my wife and I, we had gotten to that point where it was kind of over, right? The relationship was kind of over, and we were both, kind of moving in our own direction, trying to figure our lives out. But I think because of the awarenesses, the love was there. My wife knew that she never really wanted things to go the way they did. It was just the emotional, again, that baggage from childhood that kind of pushed us there. And fortunately for us, we both did the work while we were apart. I think a lot of times taking some time apart can be very helpful for a relationship. They call it no contact, going no contact for a little while. I think having a couple months to yourself and not knowing what their spouse is doing, you're going to really test that relationship and see where it goes, and see if you really truly do miss each other, and see if there is that passion to get back together and really kind of want to work this through, right? Sometimes I think we have a hard time letting go. That's the thing I want everybody to understand too. I didn't do this work to get my wife back. I did the work to let her go. And the more I let her go, the more I felt freer and healthier myself. And she also kind of did the same in that regard. But because the love was still there and everything else, we now had a fresh opportunity to come back together. And now we choose each other. We don't have to be in a relationship with each other. We choose to be in this relationship together on a daily basis, and we work together as partners to make this thing the best thing we can together. And we're both definitely on the same page a lot more. We have a lot more in common with the way we're thinking and moving in this relationship, and it's a beautiful thing compared to what it was before. I thought we had a pretty good relationship before. I can look now and say, man, that was garbage. You can have that one. I'll take this one that I have today 1,000 times over what the old one was, so.
Yeah, that's true though. That's true. You mentioned something regarding you said being sensitive about the dishes and about the car. Now, as a woman that I am, some women can be pretty sensitive about things that don't make sense. Now, how would you handle that from when a woman is being sensitive about things that are not logical, let me put it like that? How do you handle that from a logical standpoint that doesn't invalidate what your partner is feeling, instead of, oh, you're just being sensitive, oh, it doesn't matter, like shutting down that person? Like, we all know that she's not making any sense.
Yeah. So I love Thais Gibson. She tells a story about two of her clients, and she had this couple come in her office, and they were arguing about the clothes on the floor, right? And they were this was like destroying their relationship. And so she had them in their office, and she says, what is it about the clothes on the floor that you're telling yourself? What is it? Because it's not about the clothes on the floor. It's about the stories we're telling ourselves about the clothes on the floor. So in the woman's mind, she was feeling like, well, he's disrespecting her because she kept asking him to pick the clothes up, and he just wouldn't do it. It was just like his thing. He just, he kind of grew up that way. It was like, that was his thing, right? So, but in her mind, the more she asked him and the more he didn't do it, she felt very disrespected. Mm-hmm. And so in her mind, that was why she was getting upset with this thing, and it was really driving her. On his side, she said he could see he was very distraught about it. On his side, he was feeling like, well, if this is that important to her, then she must not love me. She doesn't love me. And so that was what the story he was telling himself. So here they are, like, the clothes on the floor is one thing, but the two stories were completely different. And because he's like, honey, I do respect you. I do love you. Look at all the ways I do respect you. And then as they were kind of able to work through that, she goes, yeah, okay, wait. Yeah, he does respect me in a lot of ways, right? And she was able to say, look at all the ways I do love you. And so when they finally figured that out and worked through that a little bit, they realized, like, okay, it wasn't the clothes on the floor. It's the stories we're telling ourselves about that situation. And so that's what we have to ask ourselves. So if a woman is triggered off of that, she has to ask herself, why am I getting so triggered about this? What is it that I'm telling myself that's causing me to kind of, take the emotion? Now, I could be a little frustrated by it, right? But if it's a level 5 and up, that's when we're getting more to that trigger zone. If it's like, okay, level 1 or 2 or 3, okay, I'm disappointed about it, but it's not triggering me so emotionally that I'm going to ruin the relationship over that. Mm-mm. That's probably a little bit healthier approach, right? So that's the key with that. And then once we kind of understand that, we can talk through that. We can say, honey, it really makes me feel loved and cherished when you pick up the clothes off the floor. I feel so respected and appreciated. I love when you do that, right? Would you mind doing that for me as much as possible? Okay, yeah, hey, and by the way, and so now we take it in a different way, and now it's more apt to move that needle compared to just like complaining about the clothes on the floor. I'll just pick up the clothes, like that's not going to move the needle, right? So how do we do it in a way that maybe communicates what we truly need here and what we're truly looking for, so that our partner understands it, and now we're able to, and then if they want to, have this relationship with us, they're going to want to do that for us. They're going to want to say, you know what, if that is that important to you, yes, I want to do that for you. Please forgive me if I forget sometimes. This is my wife. She's the one that leaves the clothes on the floor more than me, and she knows it frustrates me because I'm very anal about it. Stresses me out. It's just like I hate clutter. I like very organized. But again, I love her. I know that she's doing the best she can to do a better job with that, and she does. Now that she knows, that is so important. She does a better job of trying to make sure that she cleans the clothes off the floor more, and we organize a little bit better. And so it's just different. Yeah, for sure. But anyway, that's kind of an idea to think about. Why am I being triggered so much over this?
Thank you so very much. That explains. Yeah. I'll do that. Yes, I would try to do that, because it's easier said than done to like take a minute back and just try to rationalize your feelings. It takes some getting used to. So before we do end this episode, for couples that are in a tough spot and are wondering if their relationship is going to recover, what would be your advice?
Yeah, I would say there's always hope. I don't care what the situation looks like. I mean, it can look like it's over. It could be a couple months apart. I have a buddy who went, similar situation. Him and his wife got back together after 16 months. And so I hope it doesn't have to go that long for you. I was fortunate. For me, it was about 4.5 months. But sometimes that breakup, if you will, that situation that you're dealing with here, is a great opportunity for you to learn and grow and change. And actually, I always talk about a super ball where super ball, the harder and faster you throw a super ball on the ground, right, the higher that thing is going to bounce. And I like to think of myself as a super ball here. This is a chance for you to learn. There's a reason that the relationship has gotten to this point, and why you're struggling and why you're having these issues. That's normal, but we have to say, okay, what can I do to change that? How can I show up properly so that I know that I'm doing my part to be healthy in a relationship, and not just putting it on my spouse. Okay, it's not always them. I have to look at myself and figure that out. I always say, go join the personal development school, which is Tice Gibson School. Join through my website. You can go to myrelationshipfail.com. Okay, myrelationshipfail.com. You can take the attachment style quiz from there. Okay, it's free. Just do that. You can learn what your attachment style is, and then join the personal development school from my website. When you do that through my website, I offer a free 30-minute session. I'd love to. Actually, I'll give you a full hour. I'll give you a full hour session. We can talk about your situation, and I want to hear what's going on with you and see if we can kind of point you in the right direction, so we can kind of move that needle and maybe save that relationship and put you in a better spot, or at least to maybe, put you in the best spot possible to save it. And then sometimes if it is damaged, if it is, sometimes maybe it's not meant to be where it comes back around, we can accept that too. And we can start to grow from that and just move forward and say, okay, well, that's life sometimes. But I'm going to use this as a great opportunity. That's the thing. My wife and I, we have two relationships. We have the old one that was over. That we don't fix it. We're not fixing the old one. We actually have a brand new relationship. So it took that old one moving on. That thing was dead. That thing had to die in order for us to kind of, have this new relationship today. And so I just want to give you the idea that don't ever give up. Just know that things are going to work out. We don't always know how that's going to look at the end, though. We don't know if it's going to work out with our current partner, or if that relationship isn't going to be able to work through. At least we know that some other time we're gonna have another opportunity to be in a relationship. It's not like we're gonna be single for the rest of our lives. We're gonna have somebody else come into our lives, and we just want to be prepared for that, so that we're now able to really have a better connection, better relationship, and not continue the old patterns that maybe we've all been doing, where we just go from one bad relationship to another bad relationship to another, and we just end up spending most of our. And I'm an old guy. I've been through this. I talk from experience, right? So I've been through breakups and relationships throughout my life, and I just never understood why they kind of were so hard to do and figure that out. And now I have some answers, I think, that at least helping me to have a great relationship, probably the best relationship, not probably, the best relationship I've ever had in my life, where we actually have our needs met, we know how to communicate, we know how to do these things, and it's just been an incredible journey. So I want you guys to get to this side, so please go join the personal development school from my website at myrelationshipfail.com.
Thank you so very much, Bryan. Thank you. That was awesome. Your story Your story tells us that love is not about perfection. It's about hard work. It's growth. It's grace. It is a lot of hard work, and you have to be conscious. If you're not doing it for your partner, at least you're doing it for you to be a better person. I always say on the pod, the essence for us is to be a better person than we were yesterday. That is your goal. Mentally, your mental health is a priority. So do everything you can to make sure that you are okay mentally. And if it involves therapy, try to do it. If it's reaching out to a friend, try to do it. If it is signing up on Bryan's website, do it and be better, not just for your partner, but for you and the people that will meet you in the future. Try to be your best self. Thank you so very much, Bryan. Thank you for having an open and honest conversation. It was lovely having you.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I hope we squashed some bad relationships today, and hopefully we're going to launch this thing into a really great season here. So thank you so much for having me on the show today. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Bryan. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.